Adding more economists to a merger investigation sounds like an obvious way to increase analytical capacity. In practice, however, larger teams create new communication, coordination, and consistency challenges. This is EconWorks. In this episode, we explore Brooks' Law and explain why AI changes the economics of teamwork. Rather than replacing economists, AI enables smaller analytical teams to accomplish work that previously required much larger organizations. Topics include Brooks' Law explained, coordination costs, AI-assisted economic analysis, merger investigations, human judgment, the future of analytical teams.
Usually, when we talk about a battlefield, there's this expectation of visibility.
Right. Like you know where everything is.
Yeah, exactly. Tanks, troops, clearly drawn lines on a map. It's kind of like a game of chess. You look at the board and you know exactly where everything stands.
So you can see the pieces.
Right. But if you step into the modern world of corporate mega mergers and antitrust enforcement, suddenly that map is it's gone.
Completely gone.
We're looking at a completely invisible battlefield. It is this high-stakes, multi-billion-dollar war zone. And, the weapons aren't missiles. They are massive, just dizzying mountains of data.
It is the absolute definition of an information war. And historically, the way you win an information war is simply by building a bigger army. You throw more bodies at the front line.
Which actually brings us to the mission of our deep dive today.
Yeah.
We have a really fascinating piece of source material in front of us.
Oh, it's a great read.
It really is. It's an insightful post from EconWorks, and it's titled Age of AI, Episode 4. Brooks' Law and the Limits of Scaling Human Teams.
Quite a mouthful, but yeah.
Yeah, but we are going to explore this really counterintuitive paradox in modern economics. We're going to look at why throwing massive armies of brilliant lawyers and economists at these complex antitrust cases is actually making the regulatory process slower.
Which sounds completely backward, I know.
Right. And we'll see how artificial intelligence is stepping in to fundamentally rewire the mechanics of antitrust review.
And, I think it's important to point out right away that this isn't just some abstract exercise in corporate law or, dry regulatory policy.
Not at all.
We are looking at a fundamental shift in how human teams operate under immense pressure. It changes the mechanics of how enormous decisions are made. The way governments scrutinize a mega merger, it dictates the structure of our entire economy.
Exactly. And even if you've never set foot in a corporate boardroom or, read a dense FTC filing, understanding how these massive deals are scrutinized directly impacts your everyday life.
Oh, 100%.
We are talking about the invisible forces that dictate the price of your groceries, the choices at your local pharmacy, and, even the innovation in your smartphone.
Yeah, it hits your wallet directly.
So, to understand this AI revolution in antitrust, we first have to understand the fundamental human limitation that caused this bottleneck in the first place.
Yeah, you really have to look at the traditional reality of major merger reviews. When two giant corporations attempt a massive consolidation, the merging companies, they have to hand over their internal data for regulatory scrutiny.
Right. Discovery.
Exactly. And we aren't talking about a few filing cabinets here. We are talking about tens of millions of documents.
Millions. It's hard to even picture that.
It is. You've got internal strategy memos, granular pricing records, supply chain logistics, and, decades of email archives. It is a dizzying data set.
And the regulators are on a clock, right?
A very strict clock. They're operating on incredibly aggressive statutory deadlines to review it all, build a coherent market model, and decide whether to sue to block the deal.
So naturally, the historical default response from both sides, the corporations defending the deal and the regulators scrutinizing it, was really straightforward. Just hire more people.
Yep. The brute force method.
Assemble larger and larger teams of economists, data analysts, and lawyers to just read through the mountain of evidence. But the EconWorks piece argues this strategy hits a brutal ceiling, bringing up this concept known as Brooks' Law.
Right, from Fred Brooks.
Yeah, he was a pioneer computer scientist who wrote an incredibly influential book called The Mythical Man-Month. And his core observation, which was based on software engineering, was that, and I'm quoting here, adding manpower to a late, complex project makes it later.
And the application of that to modern antitrust review is just striking. Adding bodies to a complex document review doesn't scale linearly.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I need to stop you there and just play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure, go for it.
So Brooks's law comes from software engineering, right? Where you were building a highly integrated product. Like if I change a line of code here, it breaks a function over there.
Exactly. It's interconnected.
But reading legal documents during discovery is mostly solitary work, isn't it? You give a lawyer a stack of documents, they read them, they tog them. Surely 100 lawyers can read 1,000,000 documents faster than 10 lawyers. Or is this like trying to write a single, cohesive mystery novel with 50 different authors where everyone loses track of the plot?
I mean, that analogy is spot on. It translates perfectly because antitrust review isn't just basic e-discovery. You aren't just looking for a single smoking gun email.
Like a villain confessing to a crime.
Right. It's rarely that simple. You are trying to build a cohesive, immensely complex economic narrative. And the EconWorks piece includes this first infographic that visualizes this perfectly.
Yeah, the one about coordination overhead.
Yes, in a large human team, adding more people increases that coordination overhead.
Meaning, just the time it takes to talk to each other and make sure everyone is on the exact same page.
Exactly. And that introduces a massive margin of error. Think about it. When you have 10 lawyers, they can sit around a conference table and agree on what a specific piece of evidence means for the broader market definition.
It's just a conversation.
Right. But when you scale that up to 100 or 200 lawyers spread across different time zones, the communication lines become a tangled web. You have exponential growth in training time and severe consistency challenges.
And consistency is the whole game, right?
In antitrust analysis, consistency is everything. If analyst A in room 1 interprets a specific, aggressive pricing strategy document as normal competitive behavior.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. But analyst B in room 5 interprets a nearly identical document as evidence of monopolistic intent. Your entire legal argument starts to collapse.
Wow. So every new person you add requires the other 49 people to stop working and explain the storyline to them.
That's the friction perfectly described. The diminishing returns of adding human capital are staggering. The old brute force method of just throwing bodies at the problem actually begins to delay the outcome because the coordination overhead eventually eclipses the productive work.
So if adding more lawyers just creates a giant traffic jam of communication, what happens when a deadline is ticking on a massive real-world case?
Well, it breaks down.
Like, let's look at the Kroger and Albertson situation that initiated back in 2022. This was a $24 billion proposed acquisition.
Massive. Absolutely massive.
Two of the largest supermarket chains in the country attempting to merge, involving thousands of stores. And it ultimately faced such intense regulatory opposition and litigation that the deal was terminated in 2024.
And the scale of that specific case study highlights exactly why the human-only model broke down. The regulatory review hinged on incredibly complex issues, starting with local market definitions.
What does that mean in a grocery context?
In grocery antitrust, you have to figure out the exact geographic radius where competition actually happens. You are analyzing overlapping catchment areas.
Catchment area. So we're not just drawing a 2-mile circle around a store on a map with a compass.
No. It's much more granular.
You are diving into loyalty program data. And just think about the sheer volume of that data set alone.
Oh, it's petabytes of data.
Right. Every single time a customer swipes a loyalty card at checkout, that system logs their ZIP code, the frequency of their visits, the exact items in their basket, and how their purchasing behavior changes when a competitor down the street runs a promotion.
Multiply that by millions of customers across thousands of stores over several years.
It's mind-boggling.
What's fascinating here is that, layer on top of that, the immense volumes of wholesale supply chain data, historical pricing records, and internal strategy documents detailing how store managers monitor their local rivals.
So much data.
A large human team can theoretically process portions of this data, but the fatal bottleneck emerges during the remedy phase.
Remedy phase.
Yeah. When you are dealing with a complex remedy like divesting hundreds of overlapping stores to a third party to satisfy regulators, the geographic and economic analysis becomes infinitely complex.
Because every single time you propose a different combination of stores to sell, you have to recalculate the competitive impact on all those local markets all over again.
Exactly.
If the legal team says, hey, what if we divest these 413 stores to C&S wholesale grocers instead of this other package of 350 stores, you're essentially starting the economic modeling from scratch.
And human teams simply cannot iterate fast enough for that. Different analysts have to go back, pull the local market definitions for those specific 413 stores, rerun the pricing data, adjust for the supply chain logistics of the buyer, and try to project the outcome.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It is. Rapidly testing those alternative divestitures or sensitivity scenarios is incredibly time-consuming. It requires weeks of manual coordination across dozens of specialists just to test a single hypothesis.
And when you're on a ticking statutory clock with billions of dollars on the line, weeks might as well be decades.
Oh, absolutely.
Humans clearly hit a wall trying to manually process millions of loyalty card swipes and recalculate divestiture packages for hundreds of grocery stores. Something fundamentally had to change in the methodology.
And this is where we see the transition from the limitations of human scale to the power of rapid iteration through AI-augmented teams.
Right.
The source material actually outlines this transition by contrasting the traditional method with the AI-enhanced method for market definition and scenario testing. That's in Figure 1.
Yeah, the traditional method sounds agonizingly linear. You get the data, you engage in sequential sorting, you test documents one by one, and you can only run a very limited number of simulated scenarios because human economists and paralegals, they actually need to sleep.
Unlike servers.
Right. It's entirely bottlenecked by sequential processing.
Exactly. But the AI-enhanced pathway completely shatters that bottleneck through parallel processing, or what the text refers to as rapid branching.
Branching.
Yes. Instead of sequential testing, where you have to finish building the model for hypothesis A before you can even begin sorting the data for hypothesis B, an AI architecture can run multiple branches simultaneously.
So think of sequential testing like a human trying to find a way out of a maze. You walk down one path, hit a dead end, retrace your steps, and try the next path. It is one foot in front of the other.
Very slow.
But AI branching is like pouring water into that same maze. It explores every single pathway simultaneously.
That's a great way to put it.
It is testing the 350 store divestiture, the 413 store divestiture, and a 500 store divestiture at the exact same moment, maintaining thousands of parallel state assumptions without losing track of the baseline data.
And that parallelization is the core engine of the next major concept the text explores: competitive effects simulations, which is mapped out in Figure 2.
Oh, yes.
Because in antitrust enforcement, the ultimate goal isn't just auditing the past, it is forecasting the economic future. You have to rigorously model what will happen to grocery prices in a specific town under various structural assumptions.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The text shows a breakdown of how these simulations operate. The AI establishes the base case, which models the market if the merger goes through as originally planned, with no structural changes.
Right, the default outcome.
Then it layers in the divestitures, modeling the market if specific overlapping stores are sold to a competitor. And crucially, it factors in consumer sensitivity, calculating the elasticity of demand.
Which is so hard to predict manually.
Exactly. Like, how much will consumers actually change their shopping habits if the price of a gallon of milk goes up by 10 cents?
And manually calculating the interplay of those three variables, the base case, divestitures, and consumer sensitivity, across hundreds of localized geographic markets requires staggering mathematical coordination.
Right.
An AI framework runs these competitive effects simulations across all local markets and remedy scenarios in hours, not weeks. It models the post-merger reality with rigorous, unbroken mathematical consistency.
So instead of a team of humans taking a month to guess what happens if they sell off 50 stores, the AI acts like a high-speed crystal ball, letting them instantly see 10,000 alternate realities of grocery prices.
That's exactly it. And beyond just the quantitative numerical modeling, the AI is simultaneously processing the qualitative side of the equation.
The documents.
Yes. It is rapidly scanning millions of internal documents, pricing strategy memos, emails between regional store managers about competitive positioning, board-level presentations, and cross-referencing that qualitative sentiment with the quantitative simulations.
Oh, wow. So it can find an internal email where a store manager admits they are only keeping prices low because of the rival store across the street, and immediately flag how that contradicts the economic model the merging companies just submitted to the FTC.
Instantly. It synthesizes the narrative and the numbers instantly.
But, that brings up an obvious question. If the AI framework is doing all this heavy lifting, parallel processing millions of documents, mapping loyalty card data to local markets, running 10,000 simulations of post-merger pricing elasticity in a matter of hours, are human antitrust lawyers about to be entirely obsolete?
Are they all out of a job?
Yeah. Are we replacing the DOJ with an algorithm?
It's a fair question, but the EconWorks analysis points to exactly the opposite conclusion. Humans are actually more vital than ever, but their daily function is fundamentally elevated.
Elevated how?
Well, the text provides a very clear framework in Figure 3 outlining the strict human-AI division of labor. It is essentially a blueprint for the future of highly complex knowledge work.
So what does this all mean? That division of labor is actually the most surprising part of this analysis. It's not about replacing the legal team. It's about redefining what a lawyer or an economist actually spends their day doing.
Right.
On one side of the ledger, you have the AI's domain. Rapid data processing, executing those thousands of parallel market simulations, and maintaining absolute mathematical and categorical consistency across data sets that far exceed human cognitive limits.
AI doesn't suffer from fatigue.
Exactly. And it doesn't forget what it read in document number 1 by the time it gets to document number 1 million.
And then on the human side of the ledger, it is entirely focused on nuance, strategic friction, and qualitative conflict resolution. Humans are responsible for weighing conflicting evidence where the data lacks real-world context.
Give me an example of where the AI simulation would fail without that human context in, say, a grocery merger.
Okay, consider geographic barriers. The AI's quantitative model might look at the loyalty card data and the addresses of two competing grocery stores and determine they are only 1 mile apart.
Okay, pretty close.
Right, so the algorithm assumes high competitive overlap because consumers will easily travel 1 mile. However, qualitative interviews or local market knowledge might reveal that a major toll bridge, or maybe a 4-lane divided highway with no easy turnaround, separates those two stores.
So the AI sees a 1-mile radius as the crow flies, but the human exercises the judgment to know that nobody in their right mind is going to pay a $3 bridge toll just to save 50 cents on a carton of eggs.
Exactly. The markets don't actually overlap in reality. Humans are required for understanding real-world retail strategy. They exercise strategic judgment in assessing whether a proposed remedy will actually preserve competition on the ground, not just on a spreadsheet.
Right, because numbers on a page don't always translate to how a business actually runs.
Exactly. Will the buyer of those divested stores actually have the distribution network to keep the shelves stocked, or are they being set up to fail? An algorithm can balance the localized market shares perfectly, but a human must evaluate the business viability of the divestiture package.
And finally, humans are tasked with crafting the final legal narrative. You ultimately have to present this analysis to agency regulators and potentially defend it in front of a federal judge.
And an AI cannot read the room in a courtroom.
No, definitely not.
It cannot adjust a line of questioning during a deposition based on the body language of a witness. It cannot deliver a persuasive, strategic legal argument that appeals to judicial precedent.
So the AI isn't the judge or the lead attorney. It's the ultimate superpowered paralegal and like an infinitely scalable team of junior economists rolled into one.
That's a perfect way to describe it. It strips away the crippling coordination overhead of managing an army of human document reviewers.
And by removing that friction, it allows a much smaller, highly skilled core team of human lawyers and senior economists to focus exclusively on high judgment work, weighing qualitative context and crafting a robust, defensible narrative. The human-AI partnership creates a synergy where both elements are operating at their absolute peak efficiency.
The humans aren't bogged down in sequential data sorting, and the AI isn't trusted with final strategic decisions. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the core lesson from EconWorks is profound. Brooks' law proves that headcount alone cannot solve complex, modern regulatory challenges.
It just makes it worse.
Right. In the face of exponential data growth across corporate America, adding more humans to an enforcement agency just creates a coordination collapse. But embracing this parallel human-AI partnership raises the standard for modern merger reviews. It vastly expands the rigor of the antitrust analysis because you can test thousands of more divestiture scenarios and pricing models than you ever could manually.
For you listening, this dynamic completely changes the mechanics of how your local economy is shaped.
It really does.
The next time you turn on the news and hear about a massive corporate mega merger, maybe an airline buyout, a healthcare acquisition, or two giant grocery chains attempting to consolidate, you will know exactly how the invisible gears of regulatory scrutiny are turning behind the scenes.
It's no longer just windowless conference rooms full of exhausted lawyers drowning in sequential paper reviews.
No, it's a highly sophisticated parallel processing operation, rapidly simulating thousands of economic futures, all designed to figure out if that specific deal is going to unfairly empty your wallet at the checkout counter.
It fundamentally changes the speed and the depth of competition enforcement.
It really does.
Yeah.
But, it also leaves me with a final, slightly unsettling thought to mull over.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we spent this time exploring how regulatory agencies and their core teams can leverage AI to rapidly simulate millions of market scenarios, calculate consumer sensitivities, and untangle complex divestitures to block monopolies.
Right.
But how long until the massive corporations proposing these mergers use those exact same AI tools?
A technological arms race is inevitable in antitrust law.
Exactly. What happens when the corporate defense teams use parallel branching to perfectly design and simulate deals that exploit microscopic legal loopholes and consumer vulnerabilities before the regulators even get a chance to serve a subpoena?
They'll know the regulators' arguments before the regulators do.
Does AI actually level the playing field between the public interest and massive corporate consolidation, or does it just dramatically speed up the game for whoever has the most computing power?
The evolution of that dynamic will define the next decade of corporate law.
We started this deep dive talking about how the modern battlefield of corporate mergers was invisible, buried under mountains of data. AI acts like a brilliant tactician, mapping every possible move on the board instantly. But if both armies are using the exact same supercomputer to calculate their next strike, well, the war is far from over.
It's just getting started.
Something to keep in mind the next time you're swiping that loyalty card in the grocery checkout line.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Econ Works. The goal of this series is to move beyond the surface-level descriptions of how markets work and start looking at the actual architecture of competition. We'll be back soon with another look at where the law and economics meet the market. For the full technical analysis and more from this series, visit us at econworks.com. If you found today's breakdown valuable, please subscribe and share the show. It helps us keep the analysis independent. From all of us here at Econ Works, thanks for listening.